Okay guys, so we're going to extend upon the last video and I'll show you a bit more about how to use APIs in Google Sheets. So again, we have our database of names, last names, phone numbers and emails. Then we have the Google script. So there, you might find something annoying where you want to use multiple ones of these functions, but you can only actually use only one do get on Google Scripts. You can also use a do post, and we'll do a video about that later. But if we want to say do a function which is just say get the first names or get the last names, then we can't do that with our current setup. So we're just going to introduce some simple variables. I'm just going to comment out all this because we're not using it. We're going to switch up the code quite a bit. So we're going to bring in a new variable and we're going to call it task. So let's just check if it exists. So if the person is using a task, and then I guess let's just make a variable called task. Okay, now we have the user required to input a task to do anything. So like last time, we're going to check if the user wants to do a task related to a ID. So let's just do a quick check if the input ID is one of their queries. And now if they have, we're going to get our range of IDs again. And we're probably going to essentially copy and paste most of this code. Let's just make sure we make a variable for the ID as well. If you get confused, I'll upload all the code onto GitHub so you can just follow from there anyway. So let's copy and paste all of this again because this is we still need to get all these variables. And we'll probably still be doing the loop to try and find what is what. Okay. So now the big difference is we have to call a task to get all this data. So we haven't specified what type of task that is yet, so we're going to do that now. Let's just make sure we're in the right loop. I think this is the right one. If we're wrong, we'll find out. So we're just going to do a simple switch statement and then check all the tasks. So if we have a case of, let's say, get name, then we can return instead now. Let's get this. We will instead return just the first name. Or we should probably make it get first name. So we want to only return the first name. So let's get rid of all this that we don't need. We don't need to do normally with a switch statement you need to do a break after it, but we don't need to do that because we're using a return statement. So then we just want to make another case which might be say get phone, and as you probably can guess, I'm going to copy and paste this again. Press return. Let's go phone number, sorry, data, phone, and then phone, and then so on. You can make one for each of these fields. We're just going to simply do a default field, and it's going to be the exact same thing as before. So we're just going to leave it as whatever this was before. Okay, so now we have a more complex setup where we can actually take in a task and output different responses based on that task. So let's clean this up a little bit. Let's just deploy it to make sure there's nothing wrong with the project. Looks like I believe we're missing a bracket here. So let's just deploy it again. Okay, like last time, we want to do the exact same type of deployment. Let's deploy. So we're going to copy and paste this, but we're going to switch it up this time. So now we're going to have to write in task, and we're going to do get phone, and now we have to also use an ID. So this is a second query we do through the end function up here. And let's do query the third ID. So just up here, if you can see where I'm highlighting on my Google, you can see get phone and ID equals 3. So let's query that. And we get the phone number 0432808182. And if we look at the third one, that's what's equal to the phone number. So we could try out the other queries, but we're gonna keep going on and we're gonna do some more advanced stuff now. So let's now check if we get a different task. So we're gonna instead do if it includes get names. So I'm just gonna show you a different way you can do stuff as well. you can do these queries. So let's get the first names. So instead of using an ID this time, we're going to just get all the first names and also all the last names. So what am I doing? I'll explain that in a sec. So we'll get the range, and we want to get the second range, and then the length to -1. So that's essentially 2, and b is equal to 2, and what we want to do is get up to here. So then we get the values. So there is a little bit of an annoying thing with Google Scripts or just JavaScript in general. It will return a 2-dimensional array, and this is a bit annoying because we want to access all the values like a 1-dimensional array, so like A, B, C, D, but instead this would look more like A, B, C. We don't want that, it just confuses things, so we're just going to do a simple function, which is concat. We're just going to concatenate all those arrays together. And let's go like this, and then we put it into a new array. And then let's just clean it up. And I think that should be sweet now. And we're going to do the exact same thing for last names too. And if you were confused by that function, I'll just show you what it means. So if we have A, B, C, concatenations just do this to it. A, B, and C. Okay. And then I'm going to make one last function where we're going to call it full names. And this one's going to be pretty simple, but we're just going to loop through all the names. So let's make a loop. Sorry if my typing's bad. I is less than the length, -1. So this should be a loop which essentially goes through all the names. I could also loop the length of just one of these arrays, but I just found it easier to do that. So I've been too busy doing Python. And let's just make it full names dot push. So this is just going to push to the very top of the array and populate it with data. So we're going to get the first name value, and then we're going to do a space in between it, and just get the last name value as well. I'm mainly doing this just so we can add this space. There's other ways to do this, but I find this is just the most simple to explain. This will just loop through every single one of the first names, so Bo, James, Pete, and loop through all the last names, and then plus these together so it becomes Bo, Hobart, James, Tane, etc, etc. Okay. So now we're going to introduce another parameter because we are going to introduce this a bit later, not right now. So we're in this loop here. So we're going to see if the user has specified if they want to have a filter. And we're going to use this filter to return names based on whatever characters they supply. So if they supply a B, it'll return, say, Bo. But we'll ignore that for now because we're just going to keep continuing. So we're going to do that down here where we do the filtering. But for now, we're just going to do some more checks. So we want to check again more of the task. So we want to see if it includes just first. So this is where it gets a bit different than previously, because before we were just checking each task separately, but now we're checking if it's like, say, get names first, or we're going to see if it's get names last, or if it's just get names. So if it's get names first, what we want to return is, let's just copy and paste this return function. So data, and then we want to go and change this to names, and we'll change this to first name. It's as simple as that. So now let's just do an else if, and we'll copy this function and change it to last. And then we'll do one last else statement just to make sure it doesn't break. And let's return the full names if they don't specify if they want last or first. Okay, so we have an error somewhere where Okay guys, we're going to deploy it. There was a small cut there because I made a typo with last name. I had it as last names and it caused a few other errors. But let's just redeploy. Deploy. Copy this. Let's do task equals get names. And as you can see, we get all the names from before. If we were to try it again, task equals get names first. It should just return all the first names, which it does. So that's super cool. But now we want to work on the filter. So this is where it's going to get a little bit more confusing. So we're just going to make an else statement. So now there is a filter. So let's make a new function called names return, and we are going to make a filter. So let's filter through full names using the dot filter function. This is a JavaScript function, and then we want to get an element from this array. So we're going to write an element, and then we're going to, this is almost like the check it function. So we're going to go through the elements and check. We're going to make it lowercase. And then we're going to see if it includes our filter variable. So it does include e.parameter.filter. So this will now return a new array with all the values which return true for this filter. So essentially it goes through every single one of the names, checks if it includes the filter value, which could be say like a B or a BAU, and then it returns all the names which do come successful for that return. And now we're just gonna actually return them. So let's just call it the say filtered names. You can call these whatever you like, it really doesn't matter. And we're going to return names return. So let's try this again. Deploy. Copy this, and we're going to still do our get names function. So let's do get names, but now we're going to add a filter, and we're going to filter by say B this time. Oop, you don't need to put in the quotation marks. And as you can see, we get Bohobber and Bella Billy. It's a strange name, I know. But let's say we want to filter by JA for James. James Tame comes up. Just another important note to mention is that I make it all lowercase just so you don't need to filter by, say, capital B or capital JA. But what I might want to do is also make this to lowercase, so then both of them are lowercase at the time. Okay, so that's cool. Now we're going to do the Python side. So let me open up Python. And we are going to make a new function, and we're just going to call it print response. And we're going to take a request link and some parameters. The reason I'm doing this is just so it doesn't get messy in the code. So we're still using the request library like last time, and we are still doing a get request. So let's get the request link, and let's get the parameters, and then we're going to send it to a JSON and simply print the response. So our link is going to be our deployment link, so we're just going to make a value called that. Let's deploy this again. Okay, we copy that link in. You need to make it in quotation marks. And then in main, we're just simply going to call this print response. And for whatever we want, we'll do link, and then we'll do our parameters. So our parameters, this is where it gets a bit more confusing. We don't need to actually specify parameters. We're going to do task. Let's do one of the old ones. So I forgot what the other function was that we made was called. Okay, so it was using an ID, and we can use something like get first name. And let's do an ID of say 1. Okay, so let's check if that works. We need to make these in quotation marks. Everything needs to be in quotation marks when you do this. Okay, so let's just check if this runs. We're just going to open up the terminal and type python main. And hopefully we get a response from this, which we do. We get data, first name Bo. So now let's try one of the longer ones which don't require an ID. So let's do get names. And we might as well, whilst we're here, do get names first, so we've got 2 at once. And then we'll try the query one. Okay, so the first one's responded with Bo, then we get the full names, and then we get only the first names. So we're just going to do one more print response, and it's going to be get names again. You need to be careful with these capitalizations. And then we're going to add a filter. And this filter is just going to be for, let's try BE. We can try with the capitals this time because we added the underscore as well. Okay, and there we go. Thanks for watching, guys. Make sure to check out the GitHub. We'll see you next time.